in the biting chill of a New York winter, where snowflakes danced down from a somber sky, a moment of unexpected warmth was about to unfold. Henry, a man whose life had been shaped by the relentless rhythm of the city, found himself at a nearly abandoned bus stop, his figure hunched under the dim flicker of a street lamp. His olive jacket, frayed at the edges, clung to him as if it were the last thread of his former self. A construction engineer, a widower, a father now grappling with the harsh reality of homelessness. The cold was not just in the air. It was in the marrow of his bones, seeping through his worn boots. In his hands he clutched a manila folder, its contents as bleak as the night around him. 5 resumes each, a silent testament to his struggle. The digital clock on a nearby pharmacy sign blinked, a cruel reminder, 8:41 p.m. The bus like hope was late. Then, through the curtain of falling snow, she emerged a vision in a business skirt and blouse, her hair damp and clinging to her face. She was shivering, her arms wrapped tightly around her in a futile attempt to keep warm. Her heels clicked a lonely tune on the pavement, drawing closer to the meager shelter of the bus stop. Her presence was striking a stark contrast to the desolation around them. Henry's eyes met hers briefly before he looked away, not wanting to intrude upon her obvious discomfort. Yet, as the wind howled, its voice echoing the emptiness of the night, she flinched, curling further into herself. The sight of her suffering, so evident in the cold, tugged at something deep within him. His jacket was thin, barely enough for one, yet, without a second thought, he shrugged it off. The air bit into his skin, a sharp reminder of the sacrifice he was about to make. Stepping forward, he extended the garment towards her, his gesture silent but profound. "You don't have to do that," she said, her voice laced with surprise and a touch of warmth. Henry offered a weary smile, his eyes reflecting a life of unspoken stories. "I've already." The air was laden with loss, each breath a reminder of what had slipped through her fingers. The coat, a mere garment to some, was her last vestige of warmth, of comfort. Yet as she hesitated, her eyes met his, and something in his gaze spoke of a deeper need. "Take it," she urged, her voice a gentle whisper against the howling wind. "You need it more than I do." The coat, once belonging to her, now enveloped her in a cocoon of unexpected warmth. It carried the subtle scents of soap and perhaps coffee, a comforting aroma that wrapped around her like a hug from a long-lost friend. Instinctively, she clutched it closer, the fabric a shield against the biting cold. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice barely above the whisper of the falling snow. Henry, his arms crossed against the chill, simply nodded. They stood there, the world around them hushed under a blanket of white, the silence between them as soft as the snowflakes that kissed the ground. After a moment, curiosity nudged her. "What's your name?" she asked, her voice breaking the quiet. "Henry." "I'm Claire." "Nice to meet you, Claire," he replied, his voice warm despite the cold. "You shouldn't have given me your jacket," she protested, her eyes searching his. He smiled, a faint curve of his lips. "Perhaps not. But could I really stand by and watch you freeze?" The distant growl of a bus engine shattered the peace. Its headlights cut through the swirling snow as it approached. Claire moved towards it, then paused, turning back to Henry. "Do you have somewhere to go?" Her concern was palpable, her voice carrying the weight of genuine care. "Somewhere," Henry answered vaguely, his mind already wandering to the cold metallic back seat of a forgotten truck behind a warehouse. She reached into her purse, pulling out a card. "In case you ever need anything," she said, handing it to him. He took it, slipping it into his folder without a second glance, skepticism etched in his features. People often said such things, but rarely did they mean it. Claire boarded the bus, casting one last look back, the coat her armor against the world. Henry watched his figure, a lonely sentinel in the snow, until the bus vanished into the white veil. Alone he shivered, but not from the cold. It was something deeper, something profound stirring within him. He looked up at the starless sky, then down at the deserted street. "Maybe tomorrow," he whispered to the night, then turned his steps echoing in the quiet. As he walked into the darkness, the snow crunching beneath his worn shoes. There was no rush, no destination, just the solitary journey through the silent, snow-laden streets. Henry stepped into the familiar cold of his weathered truck, parked behind an aging warehouse on the city's outskirts. The time was just past 9, the old '98 Chevy, a testament to better days, now surrendered to rust, its heater a distant memory. Inside the front seat, cradled a makeshift nest of blankets, a pillow tucked into one corner, and a lunchbox hidden beneath the dashboard. He settled in, closing the door gently, and enveloped by silence, he pulled a small tin from the glove compartment. Opening it, Henry gazed at a faded photograph, his wife, Lily, her smile as bright as the sun, and their son, Noah, around 7, his grin as crooked as a new moon. "Good night, Lily." Henry whispered, his voice a tender caress in the quiet. "Good night, Noah." Leaning back, his eyes traced the ceiling, memories flooding him like a gentle tide. Once he was Henry Miles, the structural engineer who built dreams into reality: schools, homes, hospitals. He had a life with Lily, who taught kindergarten, and whose laughter was a melody that softened even the hardest days. Noah inherited her laugh, a pure, joyful sound that filled their modest home. They weren't wealthy, but they were rich in spirit and love. Then came the cancer, relentless and swift. By the time they discovered it, the battle was already lost, the cancer at stage 4. Lily was gone in just 9 months, leaving Henry to navigate a life turned upside down. He left his job, his world narrowing to the care of his beloved wife. After her passing, everything began to unravel. Bills stacked like fallen leaves, savings vanished like morning mist. The house was sold, and they moved from one cramped space to another until all that remained was this truck. Yet Henry tried to shield his son from the harsh winds of their reality. He transformed the back seat into a spaceship, turned canned soup into grand adventures, and made the parking lot their backyard. Every morning, he walked Noah to school, clean-shaven shirt tucked in a beacon of normalcy in their topsy-turvy world. "Why do you still cut your hair?" a shelter worker had once asked. Henry's smile was soft but firm. "Because my son needs to believe things can get better, and I need to look like I believe that too." He took whatever jobs he could each day, a testament to his enduring hope and love. Eyes that spoke volumes of kindness and determination. She couldn't help but wonder about him, this Henry, who, despite his own evident struggles, had chosen to extend a hand of warmth to a stranger. What drives a person to such selfless acts in the depths of their own despair? Henry had not just offered a coat. He had ignited a spark of humanity, a reminder that even in the coldest of winters, the heart can remain warm. As Claire ascended in the elevator, her thoughts lingered on Henry. He was not merely a man in a truck. He was a father fighting against the odds. A man who, with every small act of kindness, was piecing together a life worth living. She could still see the earnestness in his eyes, the quiet resolve that whispered, "I am not defeated yet." The snow outside continued its relentless dance, blanketing the city in a cold, white silence. Henry, alone in his truck, felt the weight of every flake, as if it were a reminder of his isolation. Yet, in that solitude, he clung to the promise he had made to Noah, a beacon of hope in the bleakness. Just for now. He had said a vow that echoed through the chambers of his heart, fueling his resolve to rise again. Claire, now in the sanctuary of her home, placed the coat gently on a chair. It was a simple garment, yet it carried with it the essence of Henry's struggle and his unyielding spirit. She wondered if this act of giving was his way of holding on to the person he once was, or perhaps a step towards reclaiming the life he envisioned with his son. In that moment, both Henry and Claire, though worlds apart, were bound by an invisible thread of human connection, a reminder that in the vast, often harsh landscape of life, warmth can be found in the most unexpected places through the most unexpected people. Stepping into her penthouse on the 28th floor, Claire was enveloped by a silence that spoke volumes. No television's chatter, no melodies from a radio, no joyous laughter, only the soft whir of high-end appliances and the distant mournful whisper of winter winds clawing at the glass. Her purse found its place on the entryway table with a gentle thud, and with a sigh, she shrugged off the jacket. It was oversized, the fabric worn and frayed, yet it cradled her in warmth unlike anything she'd known in years. As she was about to lay the jacket aside, her fingers stumbled upon something hidden within its inner pocket. Intrigued, she delved in, extracting a piece of paper, its edges frayed, corners creased and smudged with the fingerprints of time. With a delicate touch, she unfolded it to reveal a child's drawing in vibrant crayon. Two stick figures under a sun that seemed to wobble in the sky held hands. One figure was labeled Dad, the other Me, and between them a heart danced. Below, in shaky, youthful script, it read, "I love you, Daddy. Noah." Claire's heart seized, the image blurred before her tears threatening to spill over. She sank onto the edge of her plush couch, the jacket still clutched in one hand, the drawing in the other, her throat constricting with emotion. Noah. The name pierced her soul like a shard of ice. Henry's tired eyes, the heaviness in his voice, the way he held onto that folder, it all crystallized into a poignant revelation. This wasn't just any man. This was a father who carried his child's love close to his heart, a father who, despite having little, chose to give. Surveying her surroundings, the opulence of her apartment seemed to mock her. High ceilings stretched above designer furniture adorned the space, glass walls offered panoramic views, and not a speck of dust dared to settle. Yet, amidst this perfection, Claire felt a profound emptiness, a void that no luxury could fill. What was wealth without warmth, without love, without the simple, heartfelt connection depicted in that worn crayon drawing? In a space where success was the sole decor, not warmth or personal touches, Claire sat with the drawing tenderly folded on her lap. The starkness of her office, with its impersonal photo frames, seemed to vanish as she instinctively drew the coat close, hugging it to her chest. Its scent, a whisper of laundry detergent, or perhaps the essence of memories, filled her senses. Suddenly, unexpectedly, tears filled her eyes, a cascade of emotion she hadn't experienced in years. She hadn't truly cried since she was that little girl, shivering and famished, perched on the cold church steps, silently praying for a savior. That night, salvation came in the form of a man with eyes full of kindness and a face etched by time. He had wrapped his coat around her, offering warmth, and a smile that whispered, "You'll be all right." It was the first act of kindness she could remember, the moment she felt truly seen. This act of grace had reshaped her world. Claire wiped her cheek, her tears a testament to her journey. She was no longer that lost child. She had fought her way through the foster system, powered through college with scholarships and relentless determination, and transformed a simple app idea into the powerhouse that was Infinity Group, a titan in the tech landscape of the East Coast. Every achievement, every accolade was a battle won. Yet in her climb, she had lost sight of what it meant to need to give. Tonight, a stranger, through the medium of a simple, heartfelt drawing and a worn coat, had reminded her. The drawing, with its shaky heart between stick figures, and the coat oversized and worn, but laden with significance, lay before her. For the first time, in what felt like an eternity, Claire Langston allowed herself to cry. Not from brokenness, but from the gentle, beautiful breaking open of her soul. The next chapter of her life was calling. As the morning sun cast its first golden rays, Claire sat at her desk, her coffee cup abandoned and cooling beside her. The sprawling skyline painted a breathtaking backdrop through the expansive windows of her office, yet her gaze was captured by the creased drawing she held with trembling fingers. Its edges were frayed, a testament to the countless times she had unfolded and refolded it, as if each line of crayon held a secret she needed to unlock. The night before replayed in her mind like a relentless film. Henry's act of giving his only coat, the quiet nobility in his voice, the shadow of pain lurking behind his weary smile. There was something about him that wouldn't let go, not merely his kindness, but the profound sorrow he masked so diligently. With a sigh, Claire reached into her desk drawer, retrieving a small, delicate silver bell. Its chime summoned Rachel, her assistant, who entered with a soft knock. "Yes, Miss Langston." Claire's voice was steady, though a tremor of urgency underscored her words. "I need your help to find someone," she declared, her eyes meeting Rachel's with an intensity that spoke volumes. "Of course, who?" Rachel inquired, her brow furrowing slightly at the unusual request. Claire paused, the weight of her next words heavy in the air. "His name is Henry. I don't have a last name. He was at the 56th and Madison bus stop last night around 8:30. He gave me his jacket. I want to find him." Surprise flickered across Rachel's face, quickly replaced by a nod of understanding. "I'll see what I can do." "And Rachel," Claire added, her tone softening, "this stays between us." In the days that followed, Claire's team, adept at uncovering the whereabouts of elusive developers and poached executives, redirected their prowess towards tracing the existence of a man cloaked in obscurity. They scoured traffic camera footage from nearby intersections, capturing fleeting glimpses of Henry, his form obscured, yet unmistakable in his jacket. They mapped out bus routes, cross-referenced entry logs, piecing together the life of someone who dwelled in the margins, a man whose story now intertwined with Claire's, compelling her with an urgency she couldn't ignore. Why was this man's fate so intertwined with hers? What secrets did his eyes hold that she felt compelled to uncover? Figure slumped in the driver's seat, a shadow of the man Henry Miles once was. "Is this what it's come to?" Claire whispered to herself, the question hanging heavy in the cold, biting air. Her heart pounded not with fear, but with a potent mix of urgency and empathy. How could someone so skilled, so vibrant, end up in such desolation? The sight of the weathered truck, a relic of better days, stirred within her a deep resolve. This was more than just a search for a potential rider. It was a quest for redemption, for understanding the depths to which life can plunge a soul. Rachel's words echoed in her mind. No recent employment records, no scandals, just absence. But absence, Claire now realized, was its own kind of tragedy. She approached the truck, her steps deliberate, each one echoing the silent resolve building within her. The silence was broken only by the soft crunch of her footsteps and the distant, mournful howl of the wind weaving through the skeletal remains of the city's forgotten corners. As she neared, the figure stirred a flicker of life in the dimness. Claire's breath caught in her throat, a mix of anticipation and sorrow. "Henry," she called out, her voice both tender and commanding, piercing the stillness. The man inside the truck shifted his movements slow, as if pulling himself from the depths of a dream, or perhaps a nightmare. He turned his head, and through the grimy windshield, their eyes met. In that moment, Claire felt the weight of countless untold stories, the silent cries for help that went unheard in the bustling anonymity of the city. Here was a man, once a structural engineer, now a ghost in the machine of society, his life paused in the cold embrace of neglect. The encounter was not merely about finding Henry Miles, it was about reaching into the abyss and pulling back not just a man, but a narrative of resilience and loss, of the unseen struggles that shape the human spirit. The scene that unfolded was almost theatrical, bathed in the soft, hazy light of morning. As Claire approached, the truck's door groaned open, as if reluctant to reveal the figure within. Henry emerged, his eyes squinting against the sudden brightness, his face a canvas of shifting emotions. At first, confusion painted his features, then a flicker of recognition, followed by a cascade of puzzlement, caution, and finally a tinge of embarrassment. "Claire," he uttered, his voice a rugged whisper, still heavy with the remnants of sleep and the shock of her presence. She greeted him with a tentative smile, her voice soft but clear. "Hi, Henry." His gaze dropped to his disheveled attire, the snow-kissed boots, the truck that loomed behind him like a silent witness. "What brings you here?" he asked, his tone laced with a mix of curiosity and wariness. "I came to find you," Claire replied, her words simple yet laden with unspoken depth. His frown deepened, arms folding defensively. "Why?" There was a pause, a moment, where the air seemed to thicken with anticipation. "Because I couldn't shake the memory of what you did," she said, her eyes meeting his with earnest intensity. The kind of person who gives his only coat to a stranger in need. That's rare. Henry let out a sharp, bitter laugh, shaking his head. You didn't need to chase me down for that. A simple thank you would have sufficed. It's not about gratitude, she countered quickly. It's about not letting such goodness vanish unnoticed, unacknowledged. They stood then, enveloped in a profound silence, two souls from vastly different walks of life, connected by a single, selfless act in the harsh embrace of winter. Henry's breath was a visible testament to the cold, his exhale a puff of mist in the air. You came all this way just for that? Claire nodded, her resolve clear. Yes, and perhaps for something more. The next encounter was under the harsh sun of a Queens construction site. Claire watched from afar her car, a quiet refuge as she observed Henry. He moved with the steady, silent rhythm of someone accustomed to labor, his body a testament to endurance. Dressed in a frayed flannel sleeves, rolled up despite the chill, his hands, though rough and soiled, handled the cinder blocks with a precision born of necessity. Each movement was a study in purpose, in the quiet dignity of work. With a plastic water bottle in hand, Claire emerged from the car, her steps purposeful as she approached him. Henry, caught off guard, looked up with a start. Hastily he brushed the dust from his pants and stood, his heart skipping a beat. Claire, he murmured, more to himself than to her. Hi again. She greeted her smile, small, yet unmistakably genuine, a spark of warmth in the cool morning air. What brings you here? He asked, his voice a mix of surprise and curiosity. She handed him a cup of coffee, still steaming, which she had brought along. I thought you might appreciate something warm on such a chilly day, she said, her voice soft, thoughtful. Henry accepted the cup, his fingers brushing against hers, a silent thank you in his eyes. You really didn't have to do this, he began, but she cut him off with a gentle shake of her head. I know, but I wanted to, she insisted. A moment of silence enveloped them, thick with unspoken thoughts, before Claire broke it with a proposal. Would you come with me for just a little while? There's something I'd like you to see. Henry glanced down at his work boots, then at the foreman in the distance. I've still got a few hours on shift, he explained, a tinge of regret in his tone. I already spoke to him, Claire responded quickly, her voice laced with a playful edge. I told him you had an interview. His brows shot up in surprise. I don't have an interview. He countered, a chuckle escaping him more from astonishment than humor. You do now? She retorted with a wink. Intrigued and slightly bewildered, Henry agreed. Okay, let's see what this is about. The drive was silent, but the air was charged with anticipation. Henry glanced out the window, his fingers nervously tapping the coffee cup, acutely aware of his dusty jeans, the roughness of his hands, the faint sweat on his collar. Claire, however, seemed oblivious to his self-consciousness. Upon arriving at the sleek, imposing headquarters of Infinity Group, Henry hesitated in the grand lobby, overwhelmed by the glass walls, the polished chrome, and the bustling crowd of impeccably dressed professionals. I don't belong here, he whispered, more to himself than to her. Claire, with a reassuring touch on his arm, guided him forward. Just come upstairs, she encouraged. They entered a private conference room, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the city skyline. Claire gestured for him to sit, then closed the door with a soft click, taking a seat opposite him. Henry cleared his throat, the tension palpable. So what's all this about returning the coat? he asked, his voice laced with confusion. Claire shook her head, her expression serious. "No," she began, her eyes locking with his. "This is about something much more important." Henry blinked his eyes, adjusting to the sudden shift in conversation. "Okay," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. She leaned forward, her eyes as earnest and intense. "I didn't come here to thank you," she began, her voice rich with emotion. "I came because you made me remember something I had forgotten, a version of myself buried under years of boardrooms and deadlines. You reminded me that real change doesn't always start with innovation or strategy. Sometimes it starts with kindness." Henry looked down, his heart heavy with the weight of her words. "Claire, I'm just a guy trying to survive," he confessed, his voice tinged with vulnerability. "And that's exactly why I brought you here," she responded, her voice rising with conviction. She slid a folder across the table to him. Inside was a job proposal, a contract, a new position, cultural and human values advisor. Henry frowned as he flipped through the pages. "What is this?" he asked, his curiosity piqued. "It's a new role, one I created." Claire explained, her passion for the idea evident. "Someone who sits in on department decisions, training programs, development discussions, not to talk numbers or strategy, but about people, values, compassion. You'd share your experiences, help shape the very heart of this company." Henry laughed awkwardly, shaking his head. "Claire, look at me. I don't have a degree in psychology. I didn't graduate from Harvard. I sleep in a truck. You were an engineer. I haven't built anything in years," he added, his tone self-deprecating. "But you built a moment I'll never forget," Claire said softly, her gaze unwavering, her voice imbued with a profound respect. Henry looked away, overwhelmed by the sincerity in her eyes. "This isn't charity," she continued, her voice firm yet gentle. "This is a role only you can fill. You know what it's like to be invisible, to be passed over, and yet you stopped in the cold and gave your only coat to a stranger. That tells me more about leadership than any resume ever could." He opened his mouth, closed. It struggled for words. "I'm not qualified," he said finally, his voice low, almost defeated. Claire leaned forward, her gaze unwavering. "You don't need a degree to teach people how to care, because you live it every day." She declared, her words a clarion call to the essence of true leadership. Henry looked deep into her eyes, and with a voice that trembled with conviction, he declared, "You don't need credentials to teach kindness for. You've lived it, and that's more potent than any paper qualification." Henry's throat constricted, emotions swirling within him like a tempest. He gazed down at the job proposal, then lifted his eyes to meet hers. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, a spark ignited within him. Not the familiar dread or the bitter taste of defeat, but hope, raw, untamed, and utterly terrifying. There he sat solitary on the bench outside the imposing office building, the unread proposal cradled in his lap. His fingers traced the folder's edges, but his gaze wandered lost in the hustle of the street before him. He couldn't bring himself to open it. It wasn't a lack of desire. Somewhere deep within the wish was there, but fear. His old unwelcome companion whispered cruel doubts in the dead of night. "She's just being kind. This isn't real. You'll fail. You always do." The offer seemed like kindness cloaked in deceit. Henry, who had learned the hard way to mistrust anything that seemed too perfect, felt the heavy burden of doubt pressing down on him. He didn't notice Claire exit the building and approach until she sat beside him, her presence a quiet comfort. "You haven't opened it," she observed gently. Henry let out a dry chuckle, the sound echoing hollowly in the space between them. "Didn't think I needed to. I know how this story ends." Claire tilted her head, her eyes searching his. "How?" she asked, her voice a soft challenge. "Someone like me doesn't end up in a place like this. You don't build a company like Infinity by hiring people who sleep in trucks." Henry retorted, his words laced with self-doubt. "You think I made you this offer out of pity?" Claire paused, looking ahead for a moment before she stood up. "Come with me for just an hour, Henry. No suits, no meetings. Just trust me." Following his instincts, Henry stood resolute as they drove away from the city's gleaming spires, venturing into a tranquil part of town. The journey lasted over 30 minutes, a silent pilgrimage towards something more profound. They eventually halted before a modest red brick building, its facade adorned with a weathered green awning. A sign painted with care declared it Thomas's Place, a safe space for every child. Henry followed Claire inside, where the walls burst into a kaleidoscope of color, adorned with children's handprints, whimsical animals, and quotes that spoke of kindness. The air was scented with the comforting aroma of crayons and freshly baked bread. From somewhere down the hall, the pure, unbridled laughter of children echoed. Claire led him through a bustling community kitchen, a cozy reading room, and into a spacious playroom. Here, children of all ages were scattered, their imaginations running wild with second-hand toys and homemade posters. "This place," Claire whispered, her voice barely rising above the din, "was named after the man who saved me." Henry's gaze met hers, curious and attentive. "I grew up moving from one foster home to another," she continued, her voice catching slightly. "Some were kind, others not so much. One night I ran away. It was bitterly cold. I was just 12. I found refuge outside a church, waiting for dawn." Her eyes misted over. "That's when he found me, an old man named Thomas. He wrapped me in his coat, stayed with me through the night, asking nothing in return, just offering his silent companionship." Henry remained silent, his heart heavy with the weight of her story. "I never saw him again," Claire said, her voice now a mere whisper. "But that night, it was as if someone reached through the darkness and said, 'You matter.' Because of him, I built this place." Turning to Henry, her eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and solemnity, she added, "And last week, someone else gave me a coat, not knowing who I was, not asking for anything in return, just gave." Henry swallowed hard, the lump in his throat palpable. "You remind me of him," she said, her words piercing through the quiet. "Not because of what you gave me, but because of who you are." They stood there, enveloped by the sounds of life and laughter, a testament to the enduring impact of kindness. Henry's eyes, now glistening with unshed tears, reflected the profound connection he felt to this place, to Claire, and to the legacy of Thomas. As Henry wandered through the room, his eyes danced over the children engrossed in their play, a volunteer patiently tying a shoelace and a young boy, his voice bubbling with too much enthusiasm as he read aloud. The atmosphere was thick with warmth, with a palpable sense of community and care. Claire, with a gentle touch on his arm, spoke softly, I don't need you to fit into a boardroom, Henry. I need you to remind people of this, of what it truly means to care. Henry didn't reply. His words caught in the swell of emotion. His eyes, now glistening, betrayed the depth of his feelings. He looked down, trying in vain to blink away the tears, but they came nonetheless, silent, unguarded. Then he nodded. Not for the prestige of the position or the allure of the salary, but because, for the first time in what felt like forever, he felt it. He was still needed, still had purpose, still very much human. There he stood, amidst the chorus of joy and laughter, a solitary tear tracing a path down his weathered cheek. This tear was not of sorrow, but of the profound relief that comes with realizing one's enduring value. Henry's initial days at Infinity Group were not heralded by pomp or circumstance. No banners or brass bands welcomed him, just a quiet meeting in a small glass-walled room on the 5th floor, surrounded by a few skeptical department heads and an assortment of sticky notes. Claire introduced him with simplicity. "This is Henry Miles. He's here to help us craft something far greater than mere profit." The gazes that met him were polite, yet laced with doubt. But Henry remained unfazed. He shared his story not with dramatic flair or for sensational headlines, but with raw honesty. He spoke of what it was like to lose everything, to wake up in the biting cold of a truck, to step into job interviews with shoes that whispered their wear. He chose kindness always. At first they listened with a cautious curiosity, but by the week's end they were leaning in, captivated. Henry had a unique way of speaking that invited reflection rather than dictation, inspiring a sense of shared humanity. Henry, with his unassuming demeanor, posed questions that made hearts skip a beat. When did you last truly gaze into another's eyes? Can you recall the name of the janitor who sweeps these halls? What would you do if you stumbled upon someone weeping in the break room? He didn't stride in with spreadsheets or statistics. He entered with empathy. A subtle transformation began. One by one, employees sought him out, a quiet pilgrimage. First, the interns, then the junior developers, followed by department heads. Some shared tales of stress, others of burnout, while a few simply sat in silence during lunch. Henry listened, and when he spoke, it wasn't with solutions, but with perspective. "You're not broken," he once reassured a young programmer who admitted to sleepless nights. "You're merely exhausted. Exhaustion isn't weakness. It's the sign you've cared too long without reciprocation." That poignant thought soon adorned office doors, was emblazoned on mugs, and echoed through company-wide emails. Claire observed this metamorphosis from her corner office. She watched as break-room conversations evolved, as laughter, once scarce, now flowed freely. Productivity soared, not driven by pressure, but by the feeling of being truly seen. It wasn't long before Henry had his own nook, a sanctuary filled with greenery-worn books, and an ever-full coffee pot. Outside the office, life began to mend in small, significant ways. With Claire's assistance and a modest housing stipend from the company, Henry could afford a down payment on a simple one-bedroom home in Brooklyn's outskirts. It wasn't grand, but it boasted a porch, a garden, and walls that stood firm against the wind. More crucially, it offered space for Noah. Now, in his first year at a local university, Noah had moved back in. Imagine the joy, the quiet comfort of knowing you're home, truly home, with your loved one by your side. Henry's father joined him for their inaugural meal in the new house, a simple feast of spaghetti and garlic bread. This humble dinner would etch itself into Henry's memory forever. That night, Noah, with tears glistening in his eyes, whispered, "You kept your promise." Henry, unable to voice his emotions, let his gaze speak volumes, a silent testament to the depth of his feelings. Meanwhile, Claire and Henry's relationship evolved in the gentlest of ways. Initially, their meetings were strictly professional, discussing work strategies and collaborative efforts. But soon, these encounters transformed effortlessly. They began sharing lunches, then walks to the subway, and eventually their weekend coffee dates stretched into evenings filled with old movies and conversations that danced between the profound and the mundane. Their connection was not a whirlwind romance. It was a slow, steady bloom. Both had long fortified themselves against the world, only to find solace in each other's undemanding presence. One serene afternoon, as they stood together on the building's rooftop, watching the sun dip below the city's silhouette, Claire murmured, "You've changed this place, Henry." He chuckled softly. "No, I just reminded them of what they already knew." Her gaze upon him was poignant. "You've reminded me, too." Henry had just wrapped up a workshop on resilience when a young man no older than 22 lingered behind his frame, thin, and his eyes shadowed with the weight of sleepless nights. "I just wanted to say something," he began, his voice trembling. "Last month I was ready to give up on everything. Life, I mean, I was done. But then I unheard you speak, and it stopped me in my tracks." Henry stood, his heart racing. "You said that people don't need fixing, they just need to be heard. No one had ever told me that before. It was as if someone finally saw me." The young man's throat tightened as he continued, "If it, oh, how the heartstrings pull when one reflects on the weight of kindness." Henry's breath caught in his chest, a silent testament to the profound impact of a simple gesture. As the young man departed, leaving behind a whisper of gratitude, Henry found himself alone, enveloped by the quietude of the room, the echo of those heartfelt words reverberating in his mind. He had once questioned if he would ever truly matter again. Now, with a heart full of warmth, he had his answer. The atrium of Infinity Group was transformed as if by magic from a place of corporate accolades to a sanctuary of human connection. No longer did the walls boast of quarterly successes or new product unveilments. Instead, they were adorned with soft white drapes, strings of twinkling lights, and a grand sign that declared in the most elegant script, "One Kindness Day." Here employees stood shoulder to shoulder, not in their usual business attire, but dressed in their finest for a celebration of something infinitely more meaningful. On the central stage, Claire Langston ascended to the podium, her gaze sweeping over the gathered crowd like a gentle breeze. "This day," she announced, her voice resonant with sincerity, "isn't about metrics." A hush fell over the room, every ear tuned to her words. "It's about moments," she continued. "A year ago, I stood at a bus stop, the cold biting into my very bones, feeling utterly alone and more lost than I had ever been. And then a stranger, a man I had never seen before, did what no one else did that night. He gave me his coat." A murmur of recognition, of shared understanding, rippled through the crowd. Claire's smile was gentle reminiscent. It was old-worn, but it was everything, because it reminded me that kindness, true kindness, doesn't wait for the perfect moment. It appears when least expected. With a graceful motion, she unveiled the coat, now behind glass. Its sleeves frayed, its color faded from years of service, yet preserved, as if it were a relic of the divine. Below it, etched into a bronze plaque, were the words, "One small act of kindness can rewrite a life." Claire's voice trembled, carrying the weight of 1,000 untold stories. Oh, the magic that night held! It wasn't merely a fleeting moment. It was the catalyst that reshaped my very existence. And now, as we gather here, we do not only commemorate that transformative instant, but also the extraordinary man who orchestrated it. With a heart full of gratitude, she turned towards the stage's edge. "Henry, could you join me up here?" she called out. Henry rose from his seat with a grace that belied his years, dressed in a modest suit, borrowed yet meticulously ironed. As he navigated through the sea of applause, his face, weathered by time and trials, now bore a lighter, serene expression. He ascended the stage to stand beside her. Claire, with a gentle smile, reached into her pocket and retrieved a small envelope. "This is yours," she whispered, her voice carrying the weight of her affection. Henry opened it with trembling hands. Inside lay the deed to his new home, stamped and official. The audience gasped in unison, their collective breath a testament to the moment's gravity. Claire leaned close, her whisper almost lost in the roar of applause. "No more nights in trucks," she promised. But Henry, with a humble gesture, asked for a moment of silence. "I too have something," he said, his voice steady, yet filled with emotion. From his jacket he produced a small, worn box, clearly cherished for many years. His heart thundered as he met Claire's gaze. "You said this coat changed your life, but you, Claire, you have changed mine. You restored my name, reunited me with my son, gave me a roof, and most importantly, hope." He opened the box to reveal a silver ring, simple yet glowing, with a quiet radiance under the stage lights. "I kept it in this pocket," he continued, his voice quivering with emotion, "because if there's anything more precious than this coat, it's you, Claire Langston. Will you marry me?" A profound silence enveloped the room, followed by Claire's laughter, soft and joyful tears streaming down her face. "Yes, of course, yes," she affirmed, her voice a melody of love and promise. The crowd erupted into a standing ovation, the cheers and applause echoing through the vast space, reaching up to touch the stars. 1 month later, they were married, their union a testament to the power of kindness and the unexpected turns life can take. Their wedding wasn't set in the opulence of a grand ballroom or the luxury of a 5-star resort. No, it unfolded at Thomas's Place, the quaint red brick community center that held a universe of memories for both Claire and Henry. Imagine the scene: children with hands stained by paint crafted paper flowers. Mismatched chairs were hastily arranged. The cake, lovingly baked by one of Henry's interns, graced the center of the room. Yet the ambiance was priceless, radiating a warmth that no wealth could replicate. Claire, in her simple white dress, her hair cascading freely, embodied elegance in its purest form. Henry, donning that same slightly worn suit, stood beside her with Noah as his steadfast best man. The guests, a tapestry of volunteers, colleagues, shelter dwellers, and countless young souls who once found solace in Henry's modest office, seeking direction in their lives. As the vows began, Claire took Henry's hands, her gaze locking with his. "Once you gave me a coat," she declared, her voice a beacon of clarity and certainty. "Tonight, I give you my whole life." Her words cascaded over the assembly, each syllable as luminous as sunlight, piercing through a stained glass window, soft, radiant, unforgettable. Henry, overcome with emotion, could only nod, tears tracing paths down his cheeks, as those around them reached for tissues, their eyes misty with shared joy. Laughter soon followed, mingling with the sweet strains of music. The celebration spilled into the courtyard, where children, liberated from their shoes, danced under strings of fairy lights that twinkled like stars in the twilight. Someone captured a photograph Henry and Claire standing beneath the emblematic sign of Thomas's place. There they were, side by side, her head nestled on his shoulder, his arm encircling her, and beside them on an easel the old coat silent, worn, yet now immortalized. This image would travel across the digital world, shared, reposted, and discussed. It became not just a testament to second chances, but a beacon of how a simple act of kindness could stretch into the cold and rewrite destinies. Isn't it profound how the smallest gestures, a coat, a smile, a kind word, can resonate far beyond our wildest imaginations? Henry didn't possess much, but what he had, he gave generously, and in doing so he changed lives, including his own. In the spirit of giving, he offered what he could, and in doing so he did not merely transform Claire's life. He discovered love, found purpose, and embraced a fresh start. Their journey together whispers a gentle truth to us all. Kindness doesn't demand flawlessness, only sincerity and warmth. Should this tale resonate with you, stirring your heart and rekindling your belief in the power of hope, we implore you to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Soul-Stirring Stories. Here we weave narratives that kindle the soul, renew your trust in humankind, and highlight the essence of what truly matters. Until we meet again, remain compassionate and hold fast to your faith in the goodness of the world. Thank you for joining us on this journey. We value your support, your comments, and your shared experiences. Remember, every act of kindness, no matter how small, can change a life. Keep watching, keep sharing, and let's keep this circle of love and inspiration growing.